to this week's Ask Charlie. Now, this week it's going to be a little bit of a different one because I have got Sam here, and Sam is an educational consultant. And I have been chatting to him on the phone, and I thought that actually what he does and our conversation was really important to support our young people in the right way, to give them the right advice for their future. And so I have asked Sam to come and chat to me as a sort of a slightly different Ask Charlie, but I thought it was actually such an important thing, because if you guide your children, or it might be your children that are watching this, it might be friends, it might be grandchildren, I don't know, but it's something to think about, and giving them the right support and the right advice and guidance to make the right choices, I think is really important. So I wanted to have this conversation with Sam to share with you all. So Sam, welcome.
Thank you,
to Ask Charlie.
Thank you.
Sam, talk to me a little bit about what you do and how you got into this.
So I've been in education for about 20 years, working in various different senior positions across the range of settings. So that might be multi-academy trusts, that might be large independent schools, that might be international schools groups. And really over the last couple of decades, I just felt so fortunate to see the different ways that young people are being educated in the different formats. And I think what's really, really live and present at the moment is how education and how what we're doing with young people inside formal education settings is preparing, or perhaps missing parts that are preparing young people for entering society and being adults and grown up and functioning in that way.
Yeah, and I think it's really can be quite hard as a parent to have the conversations with your children, because they're like, oh, I don't want to talk to you about it. But it is really important to get them from a youngish age to start thinking about the areas that they're interested in, isn't it, Sam? You need to start sort of maybe giving them little, I don't know, snippets of different options. And, I never thought that I would be doing what I do. I don't think it was a thing. I'm not sure there was even the internet back then, Sam. So there's lots of different options and jobs and what have you, but I think it's supporting and nurturing them and allowing their minds to think and get excited about the future rather than negativity. And that was a bit how it was for me at school.
Yeah.
And I think talking to you, I was like, yes, this is really exciting. But
well, I love that, and it's about that simple process of having a conversation. I think that's the starting point, and we're sat at the kitchen table at the moment, so it could be over the kitchen table, it could be in passing. Generally, as we all know, if you sort of try and sit down and lecture teens who are related to you, they don't take too fondly to that. So what we really encourage, I think, is just beginning to open up that conversation. What kind of life do you picture? What sort of values might you have? What sort of skills do you think that you're good at? What do you enjoy doing? Those sorts of things, because school is so intrinsically linked, rightly or wrongly, to the national curriculum, to attainment, to grades, and sometimes it takes a little bit of encouragement to open the eyes to how that transitions into, well, where could I go with it? Could I be, could I be successful on social media and have a YouTube channel? I certainly didn't think that I would end up in education myself. I started off, left school, and the first job that I ever had was running the night shift in a luxury hotel. So, a hop, skip, and
it's amazing how things change.
Absolutely, yeah. So hotels into another job, into, I think I worked for Waitrose for a little while, and then my first sort of step on the process was working in secure units with looked after children.
Wow.
who were in care. And that really spoke to me. And I think I sort of accidentally fell into it because the job advert was about 3 lines long and said, do you like working with children? Have you got a driving license? And I thought, oh, brilliant. And I thought,
I can do that.
I can go along and I can work in this orphanage, a bit Charles Dickensian type thing. And, 4 years later, I wanted to go, and went back to university to study a psychology master's because I just felt
that
so.
had been such a powerful
Absolutely.
experience for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And it opened your mind to actually.
So the idea of the non-linear life path that we're all on, unless you're very, very fortunate to think, maybe age 6, I want to be a GP. Yeah. I can follow this track and I'm going to get the required grades and I'm going to study medicine at the university that I want to and so on. I'll get a lovely GP role in a surgery, and even some of the doctor friends that I have, are sort of talking about the changes recently within the last 10 years in the NHS, and perhaps they don't want to be GPs anymore. So where do they go with it? How do you come out of being a GP from? So we're all on this winding path, aren't we, Charlie?
Yeah, we are.
And that resilience and that ability to think critically and problem solve, these really buzzy terms, I think if we can start to introduce those into conversations with our children, that's where we'll find that we're giving them the best type of support.
Yeah, definitely. And you and I were talking before we started recording about resilience and it's tough, it's challenging out there, it's really difficult, and these are really crucial years. You've got hormones rushing around, you've got friendships, you've got family changing, you've got being pushed for exams, you've got what are you going to do, where are you going to study? It's really full on, and it can become quite stressful. And I know I suffered really badly from depression in my early 20s because I made the wrong choices. I wasn't given the right support, which I think is a reason why I feel really passionate about getting Sam to come and have this conversation, because it is about helping, the age group you focus on is particularly 14 to 17, would you say, or
Yeah, but wider with the project that we're talking about currently at the moment, and is keeping us quite busy, is an interactive experiential program during the summer, which we're running out of Chichester University.
It's such an exciting concept. I'm going to leave the details linked below, because when I heard about this, I was like, I want to know more. I want to find out. So it's why I was like, right, Sam, talk to me about this. And so he's going to share a little bit about it, because I think it's such a phenomenal concept.
Well, thank you.
And really exciting, actually.
It's so the idea is that it doesn't feel like school. I think every single young person would say, look, it's my summer holidays. I want to have fun. I want to relax a little bit, hang out with some friends. So what we try to think about when we're designing the program is how can we introduce something that doesn't feel like learning, but has an underpinning of a real kind of benefit for when they finish that program. And so 5 days learning about yourself, your value pillars, meeting other peers who are interested in the same things as you, and exploring all of that through a lens of a different industry, whether that be medicine, law, engineering, the arts, business and finance, and so on and such forth. I think Chichester's a wonderful part of the country because we have some incredible organisations really on our doorstep. So this morning I was having a conversation with the team at Rolls-Royce about going up and seeing some of the incredible things they do, and I learned that it's 5 years to create a new model Rolls-Royce, just before they even start delivering anything. Going into the hospital, going up to the wonderful Goodwood estate. The team up there have been fantastic, and say, well, come on in, and maybe the engineers could see the Spitfires. Maybe we could go onto the race cars and talk about the motor maintenance team. For the medics, going into a market town, busy hospital, being able to meet the different departments, the consultants from the neonatal wards, from the A&E, being able to go into the simulation units, which I didn't know.
Yeah, tell us a bit about them, because I didn't know about it either, and it's so incredible.
Yeah, so I had absolutely no idea either, but apparently about 20 years ago or so, a very generous person left some money in their will for the University Hospitals Trust, NHS Trust, for Sussex. And so they thought about what could we do with this kind gift, and we could open up an education unit inside the hospital. So The postgraduate medical education team have got a wonderful simulation ward with 4 beds. And in these beds, they've got medical mannequins, £80,000 a pop, but you can program them with various different ailments, so they'll have elevated heart rates. You can also, which I saw on a video, you can dress them up. So the one that I had a particularly fetching sort of 70s disco moustache, which some of the postgraduate junior doctors had decided to dress it up for our call. But listen, it's about bringing it to life. So if I'm doing my GCSEs at the moment and it's a little bit tough going and I'm struggling to see because I've never done it and it's all moving so fast, and a blink ago I was joining secondary school, and now I'm doing GCSEs and I'm being asked to think about A-levels and think about university and stuff. Where does this go? So what does medicine, what does healthcare mean? Well, let's get in there. Let's meet the consultants. Let's be in a hospital. Let's practice suturing.
And see if it's something for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so great is you don't know unless you go and try. And Sam's creating this amazing experience that you can go and try. You can get a little taster. And if that sparks an interest or something in your child or you, whoever it is that's watching this, that then can lead to other things that you can then explore. And I think it's really amazing to be able to actually bring these opportunities to life and experience them through doing this course. And I think it's something that it's just a really, really great concept, because it's so difficult and overwhelming making the decisions of what you're going to do and which path to go on. And yes, you can change tact, but what course is it that might be of interest to university? Sorry, one of the dogs is scratching down below us. But this is just such a great way to experience it in action, the thing that might be of interest to you. And you might go and think, oh gosh, that's not for me, or be like, yes, I really want to explore this further. Or maybe slightly like you might find a love for surgery if you are actually practicing stitching.
Maybe.
Or you might be like, oh no, I'd much rather be a GP and not actually have to do the blood and the gore and the other bits.
Yeah. Form those life choices, and I think there's such a broad range of roles within, when we say, even law, so if you've got the grades, fantastic, you go on to be a lawyer. Maybe you're thinking about being a KC. If you don't quite get there are options. What about a legal clerk, still within that space, still within a busy practice? An attorney, a practice as well. Within engineering, we see engineering as it's sort of chemical engineering, computer engineering, mechanical engineering, large civil engineering projects. So just through the process of putting this program together, it's been a learning experience for me that I've really enjoyed.
It opened up a whole load of possibilities that you weren't aware of. The
first reservoir that's being built in the UK in 30 years is being built along the south coast. I had absolutely no idea about that. An enormous civil engineering project. So let's go along and see it and meet the project leaders from there. So bringing these things to life, and I think really importantly as well, there's such power in the shared experience, and there's such power in doing it with peers. So making friends that perhaps you didn't know because they're coming from different schools and different colleges,
and meeting like-minded people that have similar interests, that you can then bounce off one another and support one another, because that's how we all grow. And through having conversations, it will trigger something and you'll be like, oh yes, and it will lead to other things. So I think it's really important to meet other like-minded people that are similar age and similar interests.
And also to your point as well, that maybe medicine wasn't for me. That's okay.
That's okay.
That's a completely understandable part of life, isn't it? I think to a degree. I mean, I'm in my mid-40s and I'm still sort of trying to wonder, what do I want to be when I grow up? You've got however many decades left in work. So, gosh, if we're still working it out, then, obviously our children are too, and we can provide that support for them. But I have good friends, who have sort of leveraged networks and social networks and friendship groups to get a placement in a, really great place in London, and they've gone and done that for 3 or 4 weeks, and perhaps they've come back and said, yeah, Bringo, I absolutely loved it. Or perhaps they came back and went, do you know what? I don't want to do it anymore. That's okay. You work it out bit by bit. as
and
we
by
go
having
along.
these experiences, you can figure out what's for you and what's not. I mean, I did a secretarial course and then went to work as a secretary, and oh my goodness, it was awful. I remember trying to type up letters that had been dictated by an architect. I was falling asleep. It was so boring, and my typing was terrible. And it took, what would it take somebody else? Probably 5 minutes, and took me a day. It was bad. I wish I hadn't have done that course. And it's not good for your self-esteem and for your confidence at a really fragile age anyway, when you are going down the wrong path. And so this is a really great opportunity to try and to experience. And I think it's so important that we nurture in the right way, and give people, our young people the right guidance and support. And I think this is such a great concept, Sam. So it's exciting to talk about it and to share it with you. What things do you think? So you've got this that you're putting out this summer. So in August, there's going to be places for people to come and do it and try the different experiences.
Yeah. So we're running for 5 days across the back end of August. As hopefully as many young people as possible coming together for it. And like I said, I think it's a mixture of some of the universal truths around critical thinking, resilience in the job market.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one thing that's really important to note, is that, in my opinion, I think the workplace is changing probably at the fastest pace since possibly World War II. And I know that sounds like quite a big sentence, but with the introduction of AI, even if they stop the development of AI today, I think it would be another 2 or 3 years before society sort of caught up with what we could really do with this person. And we're seeing a big effect in the jobs market in terms of junior roles and entry level roles, because law firms are thinking, well, do we really need to hire secretaries and things like that anymore? We've all been on Zoom calls and team calls with note takers that will summarize actions for next bits, and
it's quite scary, really, how things are changing.
Yeah, and in my consulting hat on, quite often I'll support businesses, and they might give me, their P&L for the year. And that used to take me, half an hour, 40 minutes to kind of look through. Now you can put it, ChatGTP, give me the big narrative from here. What are the, what are the opportunities? Here you go, Oh, it's pretty good, right. Okay, so where's it going to be in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years time? So I think being able to, like we said earlier, to just open up that conversation with our young people and to talk about them and to say, look, first and foremost, I don't have the answers for you. I can be there alongside you.
Yeah, and guide you and give you the right support. Yeah. And I think it is, I'm always banging on about this, but I think communication is key, and taking the time to sit round the kitchen table and have the conversations and ask, what are you interested in and what might you like to do? And you know what? It's not necessarily that you have to go to university, that you have to do further education. No. You might want to go and be an apprentice, get a trade. There are so many different options, and I do think often university and things like that are rammed down at children, and actually it's about thinking outside the box and about thinking broader, and working out strengths and interests and things that you are passionate about. Because actually I don't feel, since I've started Ask Charlie, that any day that I'm going to work, I love what I do. And for me, that's an absolute pleasure when you're passionate and enjoy the thing that you're doing. Whereas if you're doing a job for many years that you don't like, it's not a great place to be in when it's all a chore and miserable. Whereas actually there are so many opportunities for young people to do the things that they're interested in. And this is just a really great way for them to dip their toe in and get a bit of an experience and see whether it's something they want to pursue.
Yeah. I think we've all got friends who, probably very, very successful in some ways, but are they happy in themselves?
Yeah.
Is it a high pressure job that, is taking them to a place that actually isn't true to who they are as a person and values. And certainly I'm sure we've all seen people who either have to take a break, a sabbatical from work, or do decide to sort of change roles for family reasons or something, and then you meet up with them a few months later and they're like a different person.
Yes, exactly.
You think, oh, right, okay, well, and then they're saying, I didn't realise
how
far I'd been, I'd gone down that rabbit hole until I sort of came out and found my way. So it is important to make sure that the gap between what you're doing on a day in, day out basis and who you are and where you want to spend your energy is important.
It's really important.
We're making it sound really simple. In a sense, it's not easy. We know that. I think if you can be in a position where you're doing something that you love,
it makes it so much
and it's
easier,
paying the bills, wonderful, it's brilliant. But
finding something that you at least enjoy or you're interested in or you're good at. And I often say this, this isn't a dress rehearsal. We only have one life and we have to live it as best we possibly can. And so finding the right path is great.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it changes as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It changes.
of course it
the
does.
things
And
that
it's not being scared to make the change if you find yourself on a path that isn't right. It's about having the confidence. And I think it's really important, particularly with younger people, to support them and let them know that it's okay to make the change, and they don't have to be set in stone on one thing. They can, make changes and break out from what they were doing.
Exactly. And again, it comes back to those core skills. I think that there's a lot of research that's done that perhaps future success is linked closer to your ability to think out of the box, be autonomous, self-driven, kind of resilient to setbacks, fine, than it is perhaps, attainment and the grade and the A-levels and the university that you got and the degree that you did. So think about that. What does that mean? I had a wonderful story, if I may, just from a friend the other day who has just got in with a really, really successful startup. It's got some very, very healthy funding in AI and in sort of investor trading and things. But the bit of this that he said this chap that he's working with, he said we call him the golden retriever because he has this superhuman ability to just get setback after setback. And just
keep coming back.
It not affect him at all.
Amazing.
So he's there going, right, this is the plan. This is how much investment we need. This is what year one looks like. This is how we're going to build the tech. And my friend was saying, there's some really challenging stuff in here. And we started for the first 3 months and we got absolutely nowhere. We're miles back. And this guy's just, oh, great guys, how is it? Da, 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 da. And of course, what's happened? They've got it. They've built the tech. They've got all of the first round funding, huge amounts that we're talking about here. And what he was saying to me is how much of it is just this guy's like secret superpower
of being really
just a golden retriever, of just kind of going on, So he said he was American as well. Maybe that helps. It's a different, the Brits are quite, we're quite good at being quite stoic.
But I do think you have to be determined and passionate and keep going. And I've certainly found that with having an online business. It is about continuity. It is about keep showing up, and then finally you will get there. And it might take a long time. For me, it's taken a very long time, but I've been maybe a little bit like that Labrador, pretty stubborn, and just kept going. And it does pay off. I think if it's something that you're passionate about and really believe in, then perseverance is a good thing.
It's so true. I couldn't agree more. Good
to end on that.
Yeah.
Sam, is there anything else that you'd like to share, talk about, or do you think we've covered most things?
No, just in terms of general support for young people. I think I think we sort of touched on some of the reasons why it's challenging at the moment, and the cost of living having knock-on effects and things as well. So I think just, you know, there are some universal truths out there, and unfortunately I think they are a bit hard to talk about because they're not that sexy, if I may, but you know, turning up to interviews and eye contact and being grateful for opportunities, being enthusiastic in interviews when you're speaking to somebody,
really important.
Doing the research about the organisation. We've perhaps as a society have been a little bit Netflixed. And you know, I'm going to do this and this is great and look at this success story inside 90 minutes of this wonderful person. You know, that is the exception to the norm. So you know, that perhaps sort of more traditional way of thinking is still so true, and it's still so
and it's
important.
And it is about going the extra mile and doing the research, taking the time to know about the organisation that you're going to. I think as much work experience as you can possibly get as well. And you know, being proactive. I'm always saying to my children, be proactive, because it will open opportunities and different experiences. Don't be like, oh no, I don't want to do that. Come on, let's do it.
Get yourself out
Get
there.
yourself out there, because it's going to lead to other things. You're not going to find opportunities and things sat at home gaming or doing whatever. You need to put yourself out there, and those things I think really help, don't they?
Absolutely. Be confident. You know, you don't need a parent to come into the interview with you. And you know, that sounds weird, but that, you know, it is happening. We do see that from recruiters, and
practice interview techniques. So maybe with a family friend or with somebody that's not a parent, do a bit of role play and be like, you know, do a mock interview. I think is also a really good thing to practice. So you're not going in completely cold and on the back foot and not sure about it. Practice.
Well, gosh, absolutely. I mean, I think that the trendy term for it is personal branding.
Yes.
And we'll touch on that in the programme. But, you know, I was in a very good and healthy and successful role for a while and decided to move on to look for different opportunities. And so I went to my first interview in 9 years. And I'd researched, you know, great, I know all about the space, the education space, these schools, long-standing history, it's absolutely fantastic. Know all about the senior leadership team who are there. Went in, and the first question was, tell me who you are about yourself.
It's such a difficult question, isn't it?
Like this. So, you know, it happened to me. How do you present yourself?
It's really
How do you
hard.
talk about yourself without, you know, put yourself on the table there,
It's so
without
hard.
falling apart or sounding like a complete nose?
To me, what do you do? And actually, I was at an event last night in London, and somebody introduced me as an influencer, and I wouldn't say I am an influencer.
Right, interesting.
Because yes, I might influence in, you know, what are you wearing and what have you, but I share things that I'm passionate about, which, you know, education and our young people is something that I'm really passionate about, which is why I wanted to get you here and have this conversation and share it with you guys. I share things, you know, I create content that I think is going to be interesting, that will help, that will make life easier. I don't deem myself as an influencer, but it took me a long time to be like, to learn my pitch of who I am. So what do you do? I'd be like, well, I make YouTube videos and I kind of do stuff online. That's what I used to say.
Yeah.
And it's taken, you know, a while to
easy
to own it and say, this is who I am and this is what I do.
You have to practice it. You have to work. You have to, you know, ask a friend or a family member to listen to you do the 7-second introduction, the 7-second pitch. You know, have a 7-second one, have a 20-second one where you can expand on it a little bit more. But, you know, if you're at the beginning of your career, you've just left school, you might not have so much sort of professional experience under your belt, but you know, you still got invited to that interview because of something that you said. So how are you going to present yourself? What are you there to offer? You know, that organisation.
I'm going to share a little story with you. I was just thinking about that. My husband got a job when he was 20 crewing on a yacht, and he got it over somebody else who's actually become a lifelong friend subsequently. It's quite a funny story, and Simon only got the job because he shook hands, he made eye contact, and he offered to carry, in fact, he's just walked in, he offered to carry the cook's shopping on board the boat. And he got the job over the other person because he was helpful, he was polite, he was interacting, and so it's so important to look somebody in the eye, to shake hands, to make eye contact, because that could lead to that opportunity being yours rather than somebody else's.
Totally true. It's a great example. It's a great example, and I think a lot of times people will be guilty of the big hurdle, the big goal is to get the either the apprenticeship or the internship or the entry level role or a new role, and but that's only the beginning, right? Isn't it?
It is.
So like you said, turn up, try and go the extra mile, be interesting, be interested, ask questions. Is everything okay? Is there anything else I could do on this project? Do you want help? I've got a little bit of spare time here. Again, it's the sort of the slightly boring but universal truths that if you start doing that, you will get noticed. You will get noticed, and people will think, oh, that was great. How helpful was he? So if there is something where I think, who can I count on?
Yeah.
We're going to go here, and then away you go.
Yeah. Sam, this has been brilliant.
Lovely.
Thank you so much,
Charlie.
for coming.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope it's been helpful. I'm going to leave Sam's details linked in the description of this video, so if you want to find out more about the programme that Sam is running in August in Chichester, it will be there for you. And if you would like more content like this, or if you'd like me to get Sam back, or if you've got questions for Sam, leave them in the comments down below and we will do our best to answer them. But thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you very much, and I'll see you all again soon. Sam, thank you. It's been really, really great.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.